Bitcoin is hope because Bitcoin represents digital energy. It represents energy in cyberspace. It represents digital property, digital capital, digital gold. But in its most profound setting, it means digital energy, a way to convey energy through time, through space, that is life-affirming for 8 billion people, for 400 million corporations, for millions and millions of institutions, for hundreds of countries, for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of municipalities. And if I were to say fire is hope, and you were shivering and freezing to death, you would get it. And if I were to say electricity is hope, and you were in New York City trapped on the 98th floor of a skyscraper or trying to get up to the 98th floor of a skyscraper, you would get it. And now when I say Bitcoin is hope, I mean Bitcoin is digital energy. And if you want to send energy at the speed of light from here to halfway around the earth to save the life or solve the problem of another human being or corporation, you're going to need digital energy. And so it represents the next paradigm shift, the next manifestation in the story of energy and the story of human beings harnessing energy in order to improve the quality of their lives.
And so as that transition sort of takes place and we move to a Bitcoin standard, or some people say hyper-Bitcoinization, what sort of signs are you looking for? What signs to watch that indicate like this actually is happening?
Well, I think we're really talking about the integration of digital energy into the civilization. So, what do you want to see? Well, let's start with the basic application of digital energy as capital, digital capital. There's a trend right now for publicly traded companies to recapitalize on Bitcoin. Our company was the first in 2020. Then there were 2 or 3. And then there were 10, and then there were 20, then there were 40. And about a year ago, there were 60. And then about 3 months ago, there were 120. And right now, there's more than 180. And I would expect that one way you know that the world is adopting Bitcoin is we go from 100 to 1,000 to 10,000 to 100,000. As some people have said, one day every company will be a Bitcoin treasury company. So recapitalizing companies on Bitcoin is one measure of adoption. I think another measure of adoption is building support for Bitcoin into software applications. So, right now you have applications that run on iPhones or Android phones like Cash App that have Bitcoin in them. You have wallets that support Bitcoin, but I look forward to the day when Apple builds it into the iPhone, when Google builds it into the Android operating system, when Microsoft builds it into the Microsoft operating systems. And it's either integral to the operating system of every consumer device, or it's integral to the hardware itself, and people start to integrate Bitcoin support into all the hardware devices that propagate throughout the world. And I think that'll be another really, really big sign.
And a lot of times what I hear is, this so-and-so wants to be the Saylor of, this country. How do you see yourself, I guess, in the space? Do you consider yourself a leader of this movement, so to speak?
I think it's incumbent upon us to point out what we think works, what doesn't work. There are a lot of ways to approach this, and I think the inspirational part of this movement is that unlike a lot of other industries where there can be a winner and everybody else is a loser, Walmart wins, most retailers lose, Amazon wins and 20,000 retailers lose, Apple wins and 20,000 device manufacturers lose. There's a lot of that. In the Bitcoin ecosystem, everybody can win. because we're all aligned with the common value system, and the base asset that we're using is Bitcoin, and there's only going to be 21 million or less. And the network is the Bitcoin network. And so the growth and the success of a Bitcoin treasury company, or even just a company that is holding Bitcoin in its treasury, we could just refer to any normal company that's got some Bitcoin. Any of those corporations adopting Bitcoin to any degree is beneficial to Bitcoin, to the entire network, and to every other company in the movement. So I think it's been, very gratifying to see the growth of the industry. We do our part. I think there are a lot of great contributions made by other companies, and every day I read about another company trying a different strategy, and I think we're all learning together. And when companies try something and it works well, I think you'll see adoption. And when companies try things and they're suboptimal, then we'll know not to do that thing. And so it's definitely a team effort.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the FUD or the critics. There's some skeptics out there. Some might call them haters of strategy and kind of the work that you do. Is there a critique or a misunderstanding of your work that kind of stands out?
I think when an airfoil moves faster than the speed of sound, like an airplane goes faster than the speed of sound, it creates a shock wave and a sonic boom. And it's very loud, it's very noisy, it's very turbulent. And what's going on when you're going faster than the speed of sound is you're going faster than the rate at which air can communicate to the air in front of it, right? The molecules in front of your fuselage are not able to communicate to the molecules 100 meters in front of you. So you end up with this sonic boom and massive turbulence and massive noise and chaos. What's going on with Bitcoin is evolving faster than a society can digest it. And so I think you could say this is all consistent. Bitcoin was misunderstood in the year 2011. It was misunderstood by me in the year 2013. It was misunderstood again in 2015, 2017, 2019, 2021. When we first got into the space in 2020, there were people that misunderstood it, and we had massive amount of criticism when our stock was $10 a share. When our stock went to $100 a share, it was massive amount of criticism again. When it crashed to $20 a share, there was still massive criticism. When we had $2 billion of Bitcoin, people were cackling, or $1 billion, saying, oh, you lost $1 billion on this. When we made 100 billion, everybody disappeared and slunk into the shadows. And then a new set of trolls, a new set of critics came out when our market cap went above 100 billion. It's a different set of cynics, a different set of critics, a different set of misconceptions. I think you're going to see the ebb and flow of that set of misconceptions and that anxiety. It'll continue when Bitcoin is 100,000. It'll continue when Bitcoin is 1 million. It'll continue when Bitcoin is 10 million. It'll continue when Bitcoin goes to 20 million. And there's always going to be a new narrative of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It'll be a different generation. The people that used to laugh and say, oh, yeah, you lost $1 billion trading in Bitcoin, they're gone. They disappeared, right? There'll be a new generation of people that say, do you think it makes sense to buy Bitcoin at $1 million a coin? It's going to trade down to 500,000, right? And then there'll be a set of people that will say, you're buying it at 10 million a coin, it's going to trade to 6 million, you moron, you lost so much money. This is how societies deal with new ideas. If you study paradigm shifts, how long did it take to embrace electricity? How long did people thought John D. Rockefeller was crazy for 30 years until he was the richest man in the world. And then and at the point that he was the richest man in the world, people thought, well, that trade is done. And that was just when they invented the automobile and he got 10 times richer, right? And so the society doesn't really deal with paradigm shifts that well in near term, but after 30, 40, 50 years, you look back and you say, well, of course we should have embraced the fire, the electricity, the wheel, the crude oil, the nuclear, even nuclear power right now, for example. Nuclear power has only become cool or useful in the last 2 years. Okay, so for 50 years, people thought nuclear power was an awful thing, and all of a sudden they woke up and they realized that I guess we need nuclear energy to power the AI data centers to make us super intelligent, and if we don't turn it on, we're going to be slow and stupid. So, if it took them 50 years, by the way, nuclear power is like unlimited, clean, free energy, and they had to fight for 60 years to get people to embrace the idea of unlimited clean energy. It doesn't surprise me that there'll be skeptics about digital energy. They won't get it. Max Planck said, science advances one funeral at a time. And what he meant was the old guard, they will never, ever accept a new idea. Whatever it is, they'll die. They will not accept a new idea. The only way you get people to accept a new idea is you wait for a new generation of decision makers, and the old guard retires and they age out, or you need a war, and people that don't believe in aircraft, but start believing in aircraft when the aircraft flies over their city and drops a bomb on their head. And people that don't believe in atomic energy start believing in atomic energy if someone sets off a nuclear warhead in the middle of a war. And so I think that disruptive, profound events like a near-death experience like during COVID, I think that introduces new ideas and new paradigms. That's how we got introduced into this space. It was the war on currency and the war on COVID in 2020 that caused us to open our eyes and embrace the new idea. I would say 95% of the decision makers in the finance world still don't really embrace or understand the idea of digital energy, digital capital, digital money. And I don't think it's a bad thing, because the only way you're going to make 10 to 100x your money is if you pick the right thing and everybody disagrees with you.
Yeah.
If everybody agrees with you and you do the right thing, well, everybody agreed you should buy Amazon in the year 2020 during the lockdowns because it was quite obvious that you needed Amazon during the lockdowns. It's the worst investment of the past 5 years because everybody agreed that it was a good investment, and there's a lesson in that.